Okay. We can kick on from there. So, sorry, just to recap. So I'm going to give a quick overview on the Water Action Plan 2024. And some of the slides will cover a bit of ground that has been covered earlier by Fenton in his presentation and by things that the Minister has said, but bear with me, it won't take that long. So, sorry, no, if I can get a button to press. It's just, that's it, okay, got away. So again, I think before we talk about the Water Action Plan and the Water Framework Directive, it's important to understand what drives this. Why are we doing these things, right? And there are international policy drivers. The UN Water Action, the UN Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation are primary drivers in terms of the provision of water services, European policy and directives, and the OECD Council recommendations on water. They're the international building blocks for water policy. And then if you look at it from the point of view of, and I'm not reading all the text in this, I'm just going to pull out some important words: access to water and sanitation, improved water quality, protection and restoration of water-related ecosystems. And this is actually quite a good thing to do, is to word map policy documents and see what are the main words that come up. And when you word map Sustainable Development Goal 6, the main words that come up are water, sustainability, sanitation, equity, access, safety, water scarcity. So they're all the things that are directly relevant to water supply and to the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. Then at an EU level, there's the Water Framework Directive. And then it's all of its daughter directives, which people will be familiar with: the Urban Wastewater Directive, the Drinking Water Directive, Bathing Waters, Birds, Habitats. But there's a number of other ones as well. But it's a whole family of directives around water quality and its protection. And then within the European Union Green Deal, the Commission started to review directives. So we got a recast Drinking Water Directive in 2020, and that was implemented into national legislation in 2023. There's a recast Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive at the moment being finalised, and then we will be adopting that into national legislation over the coming number of years. And then there's ongoing reviews on the Bathing Water Directive, water quality standards for water, industrial emissions, and sewage sludge. And all of those directives have directly relevant to the Water Action Plan and the Water Framework Directive. And then at a national policy level, Fenton spoke earlier about the Water Services Policy Statement from February this year for the period 24 to 30. And then we're talking about implementation of directives here today on the Water Action Plan, Drinking Water, Urban Wastewater, and a couple of ones that are a small bit off, as I said, general discussions. The Critical Entities Resilience Directive, which looks at, and water supply is one of those critical entities that's included in that directive. And then the water reuse regulations, where, and it's not an issue here at the moment, but where there is water scarcity, there's a regulation for the reuse of treated wastewater for agricultural irrigation. So again, with climate change and those elements, it's important that we're thinking about these things and we're planning ahead. And then finally, finally getting to the Water Action Plan 2024, there's an element in the programme for government about commitments to protect and restore natural waters in accordance with the requirements of the Water Framework Directive. And that ultimately is what the Water Action Plan is. It's the implementation and the drive towards that protection and restoration. Then looking at the plan itself, I mean, I'm not going to go through it. There's 4 volumes on the desk over there. If anybody really wants to read it after the presentation, you can have a look at it. But we look at the principles, the status, the significant pressures, the objectives, I've gone forward too far, but the water body status and the implementation. And again, this is probably the slide I like least because there's too much text on it, right? And I'm only going to highlight a couple of elements from this. It's the high level of environmental ambition. The Minister mentioned it earlier, the right measure, the right place, and the right time. And that's crucial because if we can get those 3 things, right place, right time, and right activity, then we can improve our water quality. The other one that the Minister also mentioned was the triple challenge, and Fintan mentioned it as well, biodiversity, water and climate. And it's getting actions that deliver across both of those, or all of those three pillars. That's another crucial aspect of the directive. And finally then, improving our implementation structures, because there's a huge amount of good work being done, but it's about tracking that and bringing all of that together. Okay. I have gone to the Water Action Plan, and I've stolen some of the nice graphics that they've produced. And it's difficult to talk about this when you look at status across the categories, high, good, moderate, poor, and then look at that spread across rivers. So I've tried to maybe simplify that slightly in the next slide and just bring it together. Like, we have, of the nearly 5,000 water bodies, 12% of them are in high status. 46% of them are in good status. So that's, this nearly 60%, 58% are in a good place. But then it's the remainder, right? It's the other 40%, the quarter in moderate status, and then 15% between poor, bad, and unassigned. And it's really, we have to focus to keep the status of our good and high quality water bodies, but we have to maintain them, but we have to focus on the others to bring them up through the gradings, up through the rankings. And when we're talking then about how do we do that, we have to understand what are the significant pressures, what is driving poor water quality and moderate water quality. And you can see from this slide, like, it's categorized. Agriculture is the biggest single significant pressure, followed by hydromorphology, and down through other relevant aspects like urban wastewater, runoff, urban runoff, domestic wastewater. And again, just to throw out the hydromorphology one, like, hydromorphology is a pressure. It's about the modifications that we have made to rivers, to the free-flowing form and function of natural rivers. So when you put in a weir, a bridge, a dam, that all affects the hydromorphology. So that's something we're going to have to address in the coming cycle. And when we understand those pressures, then we have to look at our environmental objectives, or to get our rivers to high and good status. So in 2021, or by the end of 2021, we were achieving our environmental objectives in 54% of our water bodies. Within this plan up to the end of 2027, we expect to achieve our environmental objectives in another 6% of our water bodies. So bringing that achieved up to 60% by the end of 2027. There's more water bodies. We know and we expect that the water quality will improve, but it won't improve enough to meet the environmental objectives. So that's another 13.5% that will improve during this plan up to 2027, but there'll still be work to do. And then there's the remaining cohort, just over a quarter, which will be, work will continue on them, but we know they won't improve enough in this cycle to reach their objectives. So it'll be in the next, it'll be in the fourth cycle when they'll have, there'll be an opportunity to get them for want of a better term, over the line. Okay, and then again, what does this getting it over the line actually mean, right? Like the Water Action Plan, it's about actions, right? It's about what we're doing and where we're doing it. So the plan outlines 517 areas for action, right? So if we know there's 428 locations where we're not meeting those environmental objectives, and we have to take actions for restoration. There's another 89 locations or areas where we're meeting the environmental objectives, but we know unless we take proactive steps, the water quality will probably disimprove, and we lose those gains. And then there's another cohort. There's 17 areas which there's initiatives and projects ongoing. Projects like the EIP, which will be spoken about in one of the later presentations in this session. The Waters for Life project, and work by the Rivers Trust and others. And that whole list of 517 actions, they're all allocated out to different organisations and different bodies, including local authorities, LawPro, and the National Federation of Group Water Schemes, among many others. I'm not going to go down through the whole list of it. But again, that's what this is. And when you look at the map there, that shows the areas where these 517 actions. So pretty much it covers, a huge proportion of the country. So there's a lot happening out there, and there's a lot of actions being undertaken. So it's a matter of coordinating and delivering on those. And I've just pulled out two specific actions here. One is the development of drinking water source protection framework and guidance, which was published earlier this year, and I'll come back to it in a later slide. And the other one, and again, Fenton mentioned this earlier, about sectoral action work plan for drinking water. So those are elements that are directly relevant to the rural water sector, and which the rural water sector can engage with and input into, because the National Federation is engaged and active in those bodies of work. And then the implementation phase, right? This is I suppose, we've got to get on with it and get it done, right? So the implementation phase, it's being divided out into different work streams, for want of a better term. So there's 7 sectoral action plans, and as I mentioned in the previous slide, the Drinking Water Source Protection Sectoral Action Plan is something that the National Federation are directly engaged with, along with the local authorities and Ishgera. And that's, an important aspect of any water supply, making sure that the source is protected. Then there's going to be 46 catchment management plans to be developed, and again, LawPro will be leading on that work. And then there's the management and pulling together of all this. So there's going to be a progress tracking and reporting aspect through a project management office within the Department of Housing, so we can track this, see where the progress is. And again, the tracking is about understanding where the progress is being made, understanding where there's delays or reduced activity, and pursuing that to make sure the actions are pursued. And that's a very quick kind of whistle-stop tour through the River Basin Management Plan. But as I said, it's all, there are physically hard copies of it available, and it is available online as well. I did say that I would come back to the drinking water source protection. It's a piece of work that the National Federation have engaged heavily in, because the Federation had its own source protection initiatives in the past. And what that piece of work has done is it's applying risk management and risk assessment to the catchment area, from the top of the catchment to the point of abstraction, basically to protect the water quality, to make the water quality better, so that it actually needs less treatment at the treatment stage, needs less intervention. And this is a common framework across for all water supply. So every water supply greater than 10 metres cubed a day statutorily requires a drinking water source protection. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be applied to smaller schemes, and we would encourage all water supplies to have a drinking water source protection approach. But there's, as I said, a statutory requirement for all schemes greater than 10 metres cubed a day. And then finally, and I'm, as I said, just leading into, I suppose, an area that I think the rural water sector, because of the reach and number of group water schemes out there, and the I suppose the connection with the catchment, like the Farming for Water initiative, which will be presented on later, is one of the areas through which we can ensure the right measure in the right place at the right time. And it's about protecting our rivers and streams, reducing the inflow of sediments and nutrients into our natural water courses, and giving as the guy said, giving the rivers and streams a chance, and not to inundate them. And again, these are slides just showing this concrete water bar approach, where you stop the overland flow going down the roadway to the stream. You divert it over the land, and the land actually takes the burden of nutrients and sediments out of the water flow. So that's, as I said, very much a whistle-stop tour of the Water Action Plan 2024. I go back to a quote from the Water Framework Directive: "Water is not a commercial product. It is a heritage issue that must be protected and defended and treated as such." And we need to keep that in the fore when we're talking about water, because it's our life. There's no life without water. So it's important that we protect it as much as we can. Thank you very much for your attention this morning.